Welcome everyone, I'm Michael DeHaan, Financial Wellness Leader and co-founder of Quantum Leap Global. And I've got Annie Gibbons with me this morning. How are you, Annie?
I'm super well, thanks, Michael.
So I put it out to Annie around the Women's Empowerment Series and just gave her an overview of what that was, and you just jumped on board straight away, which I'm very grateful for. I think you'll find in this interview that one, that you'll get to know Annie is she's got a lot of energy. And a lot of drive. I think that'll shine through. So just a little bit about Annie. So you're the founder of the Women's Business Tribe and the Women's Business Incubator.
Mm-hmm.
You're a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, and you run a podcast, Memoirs of Successful Women, which sounds fascinating. And it was interesting that when we spoke last week, you shared that in regard to growing up, that you just wanted to, I suppose, take on that sort of mother role. So you went into teaching, and so you're a nurse as well.
Mm-hmm.
But within you, you had that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes, kind of. I sort of ended up in that sort of career path by a little bit of default, probably from family pressure of what was expected of me at that time. So yes, I've always been fairly, mumsy and helpful and all of those types of things. But as a young girl, particularly late teens, I actually always had lots of creative ideas of business opportunities. So I probably am a naturally born entrepreneur. I used to see things going, oh, I could have a business on that. I could create that. I want to be a businesswoman. But very much my family were like going, oh, well, how will you be a good mum if you keep following these crazy ideas? I love these blanket statements that we give people, but at that type of stage of life, you're like, oh, well, I want to be a good mum one day, oh, okay. So I ended up doing nursing, and there's nothing wrong with nursing. I was a fine nurse. And then I over a few years did a Master's of Education and became a head teacher of nursing, mainly because I wanted to become more of a leader and run something, create something, be responsible for something. And so therefore that pathway worked. And then I ended up following a journey to C-suite, throughout the rest of my path, thrown in there 5 children, which I'm sure we'll discuss. And so it was a crazy view that, yes, I did want to, have a career. Yes, I did want to make a difference. And there's nothing wrong with any career really in its essence. But for me, it's been that journey of how do I then, over my career journey now, empower women to really get in tune with who they are, what their skill set is, what drives them, what motivates them, so that they can actually be positioned earlier than later, less frustration, more joy, more energy focus towards what they want to do. And how do we get that right balance of success and balance and happiness all in one, based on who we actually authentically are?
Yeah, that's great feedback. And I think what you shared then about being authentic, because of a lot of times how we're brought up, or societal conditioning generally, where women take on that care role, or they're brought up with a sort of a program around how do I become that great carer, like whether your mum was or whatever. And that's the pathway. But so it's tapping into yourself, your unique self. And you shared with me last week, which really resonated, which is living your life by design.
Yes.
Your design.
Your authentic design. What does success look like for you? What are your terms? How do you be unapologetically you? I think so much of the world, particularly in the globalized sort of situation that we're in, it's all about becoming vanilla, all about fitting in. Whereas actually business success, life success, people who've actually, got a limitless mindset actually are very authentic. They're very spontaneous, confident, back themselves, are happy to fail, do things a little bit outside of the box, and so therefore that's actually the lesson that and it took me a very long time to learn this, because I always wanted to sort of conform and be good enough and all of this, and I was always pushing the boundaries in my own sort of era of pushing glass ceilings and for myself personally, and with my mindset. Whereas now I'm like, what do I coach people in my business incubator and tribe to do? Be you. If you've got pink hair, blue hair, you've got, quirky nature like me, high energy, actually own it, because you know what? It's refreshing. People remember it. They notice you. They go, and you don't also have to be everyone's cup of tea. So it's like when you're owning that, it's like, yep, if you love that, come on board. If you don't, oh my gosh, go and see someone else. And it's freeing. So you're able to focus on the very best of who you are and what value you offer to other people. You also get to remove all of those restrictions on you, all of those anchors, you know, those people who clam onto you, they tell you what to do, the things that frustrate you, the people who always want you to be someone that you're not. It's like, leave, go somewhere. It's actually fantastic. So I'm loving that now.
I can sense that. And I wanted to dig a bit deeper, because you are a mother of 5 and entrepreneurial, and you, as I said, run businesses, and quite often there's that people judging that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you shared a bit about that before. So they're looking at you and saying, well, how could you be a good mother, as an example? So what are some of the tips or some advice that you can give to women that are going down that pathway and still being a great mother, but just that judgment?
Yeah. And there, definitely in my era going through, there was a lot of judgment. And so I'm quite happy to say that. And that judgment does hurt. So, you know, when people will put those things on women, oh my gosh, it goes deep down to your core of, you know, of course, if I choose to have children, I want to be, you know, a good mum and a good wife and a good, you know, everything, sister, friend, boss, whatever your journey is. You know, we're all doing things with our best of intent. And so my journey was interesting. So while I had these great ideas of I want to be a businesswoman, I then also married my teenage sweetheart at 20. I had twin boys at 23, and then had twin boy girl at 25, and I had my 5th child at 32. So in that, I still had all of these moments, and many moments of crying, going, I love being a mum, but I just felt like I had more potential, and or why did I have these ideas if I could never fulfill them? So I actually accepted these blanket statements as a truth, that my mindset was more about, isn't that a shame I can't, rather than what if I can? What if I can do a little bit of that? What if I don't have to have the exact image of what success looks like, but I just lean into it? So somewhere in there, and that where mine was a kind of a fascinating journey, navigating 3 degrees and having women sort of say, to eventually become a CEO 12 years ago. So the journey was hard, and it was all, you know, men, wonderful men, but all full of men, women knocking me out of the way. How dare you be here? I've been here and I fought so hard. It wasn't a pretty era, actually. And so with that, you also get the comments. You get the comments at the supermarket. Oh, I hear you're so busy doing your university. Are your children okay with that?
Yes.
You know, oh, I hear you're, you know, you're a CEO now. That must be very challenging for your family. You know, things like that. So that, you know, it's just the tone, and your raw essence as a mother is like, you know, my kids are fine, you know. And also I used to think, they never asked my husband that. You know, he's out at work. They never go, who's looking after your kids? Are your kids okay? So it's a really interesting view. And my husband and I realized very early when we had these conversations, you know, no one knows what your situation is, and everyone's situation is unique. So for us, that's right. He was also a teacher, and he had 11 weeks paid holiday a year, which was fantastic because he was teaching optical at TAFE. And so that was fantastic. While I was doing that, our school holidays were covered. We were able to do the juggle. We got married at 20. So this gorgeous man does know how to cook and clean and help raise children and do all these things. And so it was wonderful. What worked for us, that's all that mattered. And so I learned, after many, many times of feeling shattered and accepting someone else's perspective on what was enough or okay, they were actually sharing what their views were, their fears were. And it took me quite a long time to learn that. And that's now one of the big things I coach other women to do, is actually saying, you know, it's all right for other people to say their views, but you don't need to accept them. You can kind of say, thank you for sharing that. Yes, my children are completely fine. Thanks for your concern. And you don't have to accept it in a harsh way. You can be respectful, you can be polite, but once you know what you value, what you're trying to achieve, the context of your journey, and then having assurance around that, then it's much easier to then sort of say, thank you for your concern. That's not a problem. And also realize that most things are coming from that person, not actually towards you.
Yes. And I just think you're just so clear. You've got so much clarity around the impact that you want to make, and you're very intentional. And it'd be great to sort of dig into that a bit deeper, because I think a lot of people either look at their future self and don't really know what that means, or really what will bring them that sort of joy, abundance. So it'd be great to sort of explore, as I said, your clarity. And we talked about some of the programs you're running, and you just jumped on the phone and you just get key people in there that you know will support that business, organization, foundation to be a success.
So I think for me, Michael, it was about saying, you know, when I wanted to be a businesswoman and I wanted to make the journey for women better, I had two fantastic role models as of my grandmothers, and I'm probably a beautiful eclectic version of both, and they're both polar opposite women. One dared to dream that everything was possible because she came from an aristocratic background. The other one was dirt poor and actually went, no, nothing, no one gives you anything. You have to work hard for it. So I've got that sort of ethos of, you know, dream big and, you know, reach for the stars, but also back it up with hard work, dedication, and be kind and caring to and appreciative of those who help you along the way. So somewhere in that journey, there was that, as well as my rocky journey from becoming a nurse to then a educationalist to then a CEO. I also then on that journey had a couple of things. No, I didn't know what the end goal would be. I didn't know now that at 54 I'd be a global women's empowerment coach. I'd have an education platform with multiple programs. I didn't know that I have a global tribe that supports women. But I'm not surprised, because I leaned into, what do I actually want? You know, I wanted to value women. I wanted to value equity and equality. I wanted to help women along the journey so they didn't have as many challenges as I did. I wanted to create a framework that if you're going to, my incubator programs are start up, scale up, or dominate in business. So 3 different levels. So if you've got an idea and you want to launch it and then consolidate your business in 6 to 12 months, you can do that. And I will help you step by step. It doesn't have to be that hard. We can share our learnings. We can encourage, we can motivate, we can support. If you want to scale up, you're going to need different business model. You're going to have a different level of support. You're going to have to push yourself out of that comfort zone a lot more. If you want to become the default solution in an area of whatever business that you're at, you're going to have to start dominating. You're going to have personal branding. You're going to have global networks. So, you know, and even my Life by Design course is exactly designed because that's where I was when I had my kids. You know, how do I actually create this life that I'm not just the twins mum, as I was called for 10 years. That, you know, I used to wonder, do even people know my name? It's like, oh, the lady over there, she's the mum, she's the twins mum. Yes. It's like, oh my gosh, you don't even know my name's Annie. And it really does. It's interesting. It's not selfish. It's not being emotional, maybe a little bit emotional, but it's about saying, what is that recipe like and how do we create ingredients? So through my journey and all those other business successes that I've had and the learnings, it's not surprising that now, what was I able to do? Create over a decade now, a fantastic platform. It equips women to actually, you know, arrive as they are, raw and authentic, and just go, where are you today and where do you dream to be? And let's just do those stepping stones, and they're achievable and we will get there. And a lot of times people just need the support, they need the cheerleader, they need the stepping stones, they need to actually have positive role models, which is why I started my podcast, Memoirs of Successful Women, because I actually learned early on in my incubator programs that women actually didn't realize what was truly possible. Yeah. They didn't have those networks that I have, because I'm like, I meet amazing people all the time. Man, you should hear the conversations I have. And whereas their view was very much on the women that they knew or what other people had told them is possible. And they were very much sharing the journey of where I was when I was 25. What a shame things aren't possible. And so I started that, and now I interview people all around the world, and they're so diverse. And what it's shown them is the breadth of woman. and men championing women, that we've got a new era of, equality and women's empowerment that actually is about actually just going for equal playing. It's not women better than men. It's not women hating men. It's actually sharing and celebrating our uniqueness as women and our complementary qualities and things that we bring to the table. The fact that we are very good for business, we're all good for the bottom line, we're the ones who actually are the buying power in most businesses. It's a no-brainer to want women really at the forefront of business and politics and all things social change. And so how do we actually do that in a way that encourages women to dream bigger, and act boldly to actually achieve those things? And does it happen overnight? No. Did my journey happen overnight? No. But I tell you what, when you chip away and it compounds and you're leaning into whatever it is that you're wanting to do, oh my gosh, like crazy stuff happens, which is why I got tagged the executive magician a few years ago. And they went, well, I'm like, oh, that's a funny term. And they went, yeah, because you make magic happen. And I went, you know what, I kind of do. So how do you make magic happen? By actually believing in the impossible and actually just having systems and frameworks in place that it does. It doesn't have to be that hard.
Wow. And I think you shared that small stepping stone. So when people are looking at where they are now and where they want to be, it could look like a very out of reach, so to speak. But I think it's so important for people to set those small stepping stones, because it increases their, I suppose, their drive, that they believe in themselves, they can achieve it. So I thought that was really good feedback to understand the journey and the points along the way that'll show you that you're on the right pathway.
You have to have regular wins, right?
Yeah.
My view is, and I'm a party girl, probably not surprising, I say celebrate often, right? So whatever goal you have, that's where the overwhelm comes. That's where the self-sabotage comes. That's where the panic and the anxiety happens. I call it the handbrakes. As soon as these people who say you have to leap out of your comfort zone, no, you don't. You fall off a cliff and you freak out and fear gets activated. You need to stretch your comfort zone in a safe, supportive environment. We always need to be pushing that comfort zone a little bit further. So I want goals that are a little bit scary, but achievable. And whatever that goal is, I want to break it down into bite-sized chunks. It doesn't matter what part of the business development growth you're doing, what part of personal growth you're doing. It's bite-sized chunk, daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and actually putting them out to the universe and making yourself a little bit accountable, and then having cheerleaders who go, I'm so glad you want that. I want that for you too. And so then you end up celebrating often. And the more you have positive reward, the braver you get, the bolder you get. And then one day you're like a gazelle like me who just launches out of comfort zone. I don't even know I have a comfort zone, but that comes because I trust. I know I've had successes. When you don't, when you have an epic fail, it's easy for someone like me to go, oh, there's no such thing as failure, because I kind of think there isn't. But I'm also in a different mindset, right? And a different experience. When you fail, when you're very vulnerable, when it's your whole world and you sense it as a failure, that's a very hard thing to bounce back from. So we want to make sure that everything can be broken down into a level that you can't fail. You just have to, in my words, lean into it. You need to do a step towards. And my whole life journey is like that. How did I do 5 kids and 3 degrees and do all these things? Because I actually just leaned in and chipped away. Some of that was a term at uni, one subject took forever because I didn't have that luxury. I didn't have the babysitters. I didn't have the finance. I didn't have all these other things, but you can do something. And then one day you go, oh my gosh, I finished, and then it opens up a whole new world of opportunities. And so it might not be a whole uni degree. It actually might just be like, I run short courses on how to pitch for something, or how to level up your LinkedIn, or how to change your mindset. They can be just little things that just go, wow, I'm a trekker, Michael. And so I'm all into, when you get to you think you've got to the top of the mountain and you're like, oh, and then suddenly you get there and you celebrate, and then you go, oh, there's more. Always, a new view, a new opportunity, something else to climb, and it's exciting. Or you can actually just pause on top of the mountain and just enjoy the view and actually take that time out to reflect how far you've come.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is equally valuable, right? So,
and I think that self-reflection is a great point, as I say, because that sort of builds that muscle. I'd be really interested in, I suppose we look at bigger businesses and corporates in general, and there's generally that sort of patriarchal system. So we talk about diversity and inclusion, and diversity is generally given because you can manufacture that. The inclusion is really internal. And it's really supporting our women and minorities to actually have a voice,
yes,
visibility within that corporate and to be heard. And I'd be interested because I find that a lot of women, generally speaking, will go into this sort of system and potentially don't feel valued, or they've tried to speak up about something and that their words haven't been heard, or they've been chastised, or they make a mistake, they get chastised. And I'd be interested in your views or your learnings around supporting women to bring their whole self to work, their true authentic self, within that system as well. But because we can't change the system, or that might be changing over time when we're going through this awakening, which I believe we are. But how are you showing up daily? Have you got any sort of support or advice you can give women?
Oh, I think showing up it's one, we are all in a patriarchal system, pretty much whatever industry. Some are much bigger positioned that way, such as construction or, or tech. Others aren't so much, such as, hospitality or, the kindness industries like that are generally women dominated. So there'll be a big benchmark there, a big breadth of, what we're dealing with. Saying that, the reality is that the ratios of women in senior leadership positions is really poor. When I first started my career, it was only around 4% of women were C-suite, so pretty tragic. Now we're generally up to around 38, 39 in most sectors. However, once you actually get to the Fortune 500 or ASX listed companies, it'll suddenly crash down to sometimes around 6%, depending on the industry. So have we come very far? We've also had a massive resignation during COVID, that a lot of those women have been the first to self-sacrifice. They're the ones who pulled the plug on their jobs to mind children and so forth. So while we have got progress, we've also done a few steps back. I suppose to answer your question, it's all about, in my earlier stages of the career, it was like, I hope I'm good enough, and I was honoured to be there. And I suppose the difference is when you actually get to a stage going, no, if I am here, I'm meant to be here. I'm going to push for those positions. So for example, at the moment, I'm looking for boards to be of value too. So I'll go onto those boards. I don't want to actually just go onto a board to be a token female, right? I don't want to be part of the 50-50 split. The 50-50 should be there because we are 50% of the population. Yes. So I want to come in and go, that's assumed to me. I want to be there, one, because that's assumed. I don't even need to have that conversation. I want to be of value. So the difference between being there at the table, as people will talk about it, and then actually being there to have an opinion that is of value and taken seriously is a whole other thing. And that will come with a level of, confidence, empowerment to actually say, it's not that I'm here and I'm therefore better or of more value than anyone else. I'm here equally, and my voice needs to be heard, and I need to contribute to the conversation. And therefore, so for where I sit now, it's all about how can I actually be part of a collective change? How can we as a board or a group or a company or a management team add value with the sum of the voices, right? And that's where sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you're actually your voice is heard. So there's no point just being at a table if no one listens to you, no one even notices you're there. So that's tokenism. That is seen sometimes statistically as progression and growth, and I'm actually happy to call that out, go, is it really? I want to know how many of those. So therefore, I'm not even looking at women in board positions. I'm actually looking at chair of the boards. How many women are chairs of those boards in the executive suite of those boards or companies, private companies, because they are the people who who will enact change. And
Yes.
so that's a reason that I even accepted a position recently to be the Equity and Equality Chair for G100 in Australia, because I actually want to meet with other women who in the corporate sector who actually are saying, you know, we don't want to be, you know, token. We actually want to look at all of our businesses. How do we not only push that glass ceiling or smash it, that shouldn't even be there, but also have another view of things? And I know you were talking to, with Kathy about that last week, and I absolutely adore Kathy and her views on that, which is actually raising the bottom line, the benchmark of where women start. And so if you actually raise the level of opportunity for women, which is why I give away $300,000 of scholarships to my programs every year, and things that other people do, to actually give women an opportunity. If we don't have the opportunity, then how do we have these, you know, how do we listen to people like Annie or Kathy talking about these amazing things and pushing the glass ceiling? If you're in a country that you have to spend 6 hours a day collecting water, if you have to, educate children out in a field somewhere, if you have to, run a shop for, 18 hours a day because you don't have infrastructure and support or backup or whatever your circumstance. So I'm very into having women positioned that we can, one, be pushing, having role models and people of influence and power who are actually happy to do the work and push for good change, global change, and then also be equipping women to actually have the framework that they can actually then just start flying, because that's when you also have the ability to be unapologetic, ability to be authentically you, ability to actually say, I would love my voice heard in this way. That is a luxury if you don't have your base level framework. If you don't have safety, you don't have security, you don't have food and water guaranteed, you don't have these pros. So in Australia, we're in a different conversation. Of course, everybody has that. But because I've got a global market of women that I'm working with, it becomes a very different situation. So we need to be very honest and real about what our realities are about, the world and opportunities for women. In Australia, I believe everyone has that opportunity. And therefore, it's about actually believing in, who you are, what you stand for, actually spending time, which I didn't do. I just flew through life and accepted a lot of things as truths and never actually paused to think, that's right, who am I authentically? And I think we need to do that a lot more. I think our schools, you need to do that a lot more with, rather than just go and get careers, spending time to actually go and support or give value to the inner essence of who we are, because that's another area that we spend a lot of time getting sad. The amount of people I've met who've done degrees and then are miserable in their 30s because they kind of just had to tick boxes, and therefore, if you're not happy, you're not going to champion for change. You're not going to push new things. You're just going to be kind of doing the day job. When you're in a position that you love what you do, there's value for yourself personally and those that you serve. Oh my gosh, you're happy to do the extra mile. You're happy to push things. You're happy to have an opinion. You want it to grow and blossom. So my message to those listening in is, if it's not sparking joy for you, as the term is, if it's not getting you excited when you get out of bed every day, then it's a good time to actually, look at your situation and go, well, have I really created my life by design? Right? Have I actually created a context that the essence of who I am as I am evolving, not the person I was, the person I am today and the future self that I'm wanting to inherit, is my framework going to be supporting that person? That's a whole interesting conversation.
And I think one of the things you said there is that sort of awareness, being curious. So people will tell you a story around how you should be and how you should show up, and always being curious. I just think that's the awareness is the power to actually not just accept. And that's a big takeaway that I sort of...
Becoming Annie, the biography of a curious woman.
Oh,
that's my biography. And that's exactly the word, Michael, curious. If I wasn't curious, if I didn't go, but somewhere in there in my early 20s, I switched on. My curiosity actually saved me in a lot of ways, because I went, what if they're wrong? what if, even if I can't be the businesswoman who's, doing all these things in the world, what if I could do a little bit? What if I could do it a different way? What if I could go from, instead of, because I couldn't afford the MBA from a nurse, what if, with 5 kids in tow, not going to happen? What if I could do a graduate diploma, and then I could do a master's, and then I could get leadership skills and management skills and learn these things, and then somehow find my way over to do a company director's course, and then do this? What if you can go the road less traveled?
Yes.
That's curiosity. Curiosity goes and says, well, maybe something's possible. Maybe you can do it a different way. So much so that you can, if you can't go the main flow, right, which is meant for the men's world, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way it's been. Sometimes you have to open different doors, which is why global networking is so important. And sometimes if you're a pioneer like I have been, you actually have to create your own doors. I actually had to paint a whole different picture for what was possible for my journey, because on paper, it wasn't possible. There were no doors for Annie Gibbons as a mum of, 2 sets of twins when I was 25 to become a CEO and be leading companies and growing companies globally. No way in the world. So I actually had to be curious to go, well, maybe I can make this a bit of a game. How many things could I prove wrong, or just to learn along the way, or at least I'll be further ahead than I thought I was going to be. And so that, I tell you what, if you're missing a few ingredients in your little recipe, those listening in, tell you what, if you can activate curiosity, you will go leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and the other word that comes to mind when you were sharing that was intuition. It's something there that we've probably got a bit of a disconnect with, or we don't take the time to listen to what it's telling us. And I get the feeling that women are very intuitive. Because again, this, being told what to do and accepting that, they can sort of dumb down their intuition, or not trust it, or not believe it.
Yes, I think there's a few complex factors there. I agree with you. I believe women are very intuitive. We also, stopping that, so intuition, you just feel it in your gut. It feels wrong. You know it's wrong. The problem there is, what do you do about it? How do we respond to any situation? And so I'd be a classic example. How was I raised as a girl? I was like, be quiet, don't speak up, don't be noisy, be polite, pretty much let people take advantage. It wasn't all bad. I'm not saying I was badly parented, but it's things like, some creepy uncle wants to kiss you or something, you let them. Someone wants to take advantage of you, and I was a victim of sexual assault. It was like, and then you say something about it, that's not true, don't tell lies, don't be a bad girl. So you're instantly at fault if you don't fit a view of society or that context that you're living in. So while you get intuition and going, oh, that feels bad, that's wrong, or I would like, or I'd see, or I see opportunity, positive and negative aspects of intuition, you also can easily, as a woman, default to societal expectations and norms of you. And it is very hard to actually break through if you don't have a framework of support, if you don't have people who actually believe you, people who are safe, people that you can be honest and true with without expectation, because a lot of that woman's world is actually, there's a lot of expectation. There's an expectation that others put on ourselves, a lot of expectations that we just put on our own self. I mean, gosh, the expectations that I put on trying to make sure that I wasn't a good mum, to try and, what is perfect? Oh my God, that can kill me, that word, to actually go, I am enough as I am, flaws and all, some days I'll have awesome days and I'll ace it, and other days I'm just hilariously epic failure after failure. And my kids will probably tell you some examples. And that is okay. It's about getting authentic enough and empowered enough and confident enough. And you need that security around you. You need to be in an environment that supports and welcomes that. And then you're able to make different decisions with your intuition. Your intuition was always there. Your intuition will activate more when it's given permission to open up, like anything that you want to explore. So I think the more empowered you get, the more intuition you have. I tell you what, it's like laser pointed focus of, yes, I feel things, I sense things, because I don't have all the clutter. I don't have all that emotional baggage. I don't have all the negative. I'm not anchored to all these things. I'm not entertaining limited beliefs and things that other people are putting on me, so I can actually live in my essence more. So I think it's such a value add. You can't get there when you're not in that sort of framework. So once again, that's why I have the tribe, because that creates the framework that you can just slip into. You know, if you don't have a tribe, you join a tribe. You open a different door and you just pop on in. It's so easy.
And I just had a feeling, I knew it was going to be high energy. And there's just so much value that you provided. I'm very grateful for that. I think there's a lot of wisdom there, and there's a lot of takeaways for women to look at their own life. And it's all about empowerment and being your true authentic self. And so I'm very grateful for that. And thank you for being a part of the series.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. I wish we could talk all day.
We could, actually.